This is arcraiders, a third-person multiplayer extraction shooter loved by many. From the surface, arcraiders seems like a normal sci-fi extraction game, but I think it holds a deeper meaning inside. In this video I will dive deep into the lore of arcraiders to dissect it and analyze it piece by piece. But to understand the whole picture, we must start from the beginning. Not much is known about the world of arcraiders before the Ark attacked, but we do know that the human civilization almost got wiped out by a global environmental collapse. This event is today known simply as the collapse. Devastating floods, scorching fires and earthquakes conspired to rid Earth of its inhabitants, leaving only a few patches of habitable land left. In these lands, the remaining humans gathered, forming communities within the remnants of old cities. For example, the buried city, which is actually called Marano. Most of the evidence of life before the collapse was lost in the huge tragedy, but luckily small bits of information and evidence survived the devastating event. The biggest piece of evidence is the city of Marano, which is still barely standing to this day. Marano is a natural time capsule showing us the remnants of the dangerous past people used to live in. While in Marano people were trying to bring back human civilization to life, in Bluegate some people started a highly classified research study called Project Heartwood. Much of the research conducted as part of Project Heartwood seems to have been extremely classified. Documents that have been found reveal that the project was financed with public funds, most likely with tax money. Some of the research that was done was focused on high-capacity brine-based batteries. Researchers of Project Heartwood managed to create rudimentary prototypes, but they never seem to have been brought into full production. While the project yielded tangible results, it was ultimately deemed insufficient and discontinued as a result. Ongoing projects were suddenly cancelled by a group called Manticore, and the funds and resources were redirected towards the Exodus initiative. This decision led to the power from the Alcantara Dam to be rerouted to support the construction of the spaceport. But before we talk about spaceport and the project Exodus, let's quickly talk about Manticore and what or who are they? Manticore was an organization that handled security for both the Bluegate and the Stella Montis facilities. Manticore had a very strong presence at the Bluegate. Together with Guardia, which is also a security company, they maintained a checkpoint with a reinforced gate controlling the tunnels leading deep into the mountains. Deep underground, they operated a fortified facility. In Stella Montis, Manticore has a single security checkpoint in the research facility's lobby. When the world collapsed, it is said that a handful of brave and most likely very high status people managed to escape the tragedy into outer space. This event is called the Exodus. With them, they boarded marvelous technology that is lost to us forever. Not much is known about how they managed to escape the collapse into outer space, and only a small fragment of the extremely advanced technology survived. The biggest proof of this technology are the launch towers in Spaceport. It seems that just when the world collapsed, humans were at the peak of their evolution, creating technology that seems impossible to recreate today. While some people were somehow able to escape the collapse into outer space, the people that were left on Earth and that survived had hard times ahead of them because the collapse was followed by generations of darkness. But luckily, after the dark, always comes light. After years of darkness caused by the collapse came the sunrise. Still alive in the memories of the few very old people still around. The era of sunrise was marked by signs of restorations of the planet's ecology as well as the rediscovery of old technology. Humans then succeeded in creating an organized society to a degree. A community of survivors called the Settlers began to gather around the dormant Alcantara Dam, where they managed to build the first hydroponic domes. These domes allowed them to consistently produce food and even make use of the old solar panels for energy. The hydroponic domes domes are situated in the fetid swamp by the Alcantara Dam. The domes are an optimistic experiment to make society less reliant on berries, mushrooms, and gathered roots. Notes found in the data archives of the domes reveal that a group of cultivation researchers built the site in an attempt to develop a new, more resilient strain of wheat. Unfortunately, the experiment was halted after a devastating hailstorm caused the fragile seedlings to wither. The sunrise was a time of growing optimism, and many people were sure that the worst was behind us. But just as some degree of human civilization returned, suddenly highly technological machines started falling from the skies. These machines are today known as the Ark. What is the Ark? The Ark is the name given to the mysterious machines that raiders are fighting against. The true intentions of the Ark are still unknown, but they have been widely observed probing the soil on Earth before harvesting natural resources with high efficiency. The first time the Ark came to Earth was at the beginning of the first wave, which we will be talking more about soon. The Ark have been split into two categories: security and industrial. The security arcs include the following machines: Snitch, Wasp, Hornet, Pop, Fireball, Tick, Turret, Rocketeer, Leaper, Bastion, Bombardier, Spotter, Sentinel, Queen, Matriarch, Shredder, Comet, Firefly, and Vaporizer. The industrial machines include the Arc Probe, Courier, Surveyor, and Assessor. Ark's security forces constantly refine their designs and tactics in the face of new threats. This is very apparent when comparing the designs of the rudimentary machines of the first wave to the more developed and sophisticated designs of the current wave of Ark. Now that we understand even a little bit about the Ark, let's talk about their threat to Earth and humanity, starting from the event called the First Wave. Just as the world seemed to be recovering from the collapse, high-tech machines started falling from the skies and every bit of progression and stability was wiped away once again. This is the time when the settlers became known as the first raiders. At first, the machines seemed impossible to beat and extremely ruthless, but luckily during the first wave, the machines were comparatively rudimentary. Thanks to this, the first raiders soon found weaknesses on these machines. The first raiders built a large network of outposts and defensive structures to help them beat the Ark in battle. It took the first raiders over a decade to beat back the machines, though not without huge losses. Many raiders lost their lives during battle. The battle when the raiders won the war against the machines is today known as the Battle of Victory Ridge. Victory Ridge is located west of the Alcantara Dam. It was the scene of a fierce battle between the Ark and the first raiders. After a decade of Ark onslaught, scattered raider groups united under the brilliant leadership of Major Iva, and the Ark were finally defeated. The battle was many days long, littering the battlegrounds with Ark husks and many fallen raiders. Most who fought at Victory Ridge never returned home, and those who did carry wounds both visible and hidden. Most never truly recovered from the Battle of Victory Ridge. One of the most important characters in the first wave is known as Major Iva, who is Tian Wen's mother, and much like her daughter, Major Iva was a whip-smart tactical mastermind. Iva led many successful battles against the Ark during the first wave until she was ultimately killed in the Battle of Victory Ridge. Sadly, as with many other important figures from the first wave, she has slowly faded into the shadows of history. But Tian Wen will always remember her mom for her heroic actions. The most dangerous Ark machines during the first wave are called Barons. They were the pinnacle of Ark's machines during the first wave. The Baron was a very powerful six-legged mechanical walker. The Barons had very powerful attacks and they had surprisingly adaptive behavior. After the last Baron was brought down in the Battle of Victory Ridge, they have never been seen again. Although humans won against the Ark, the Battle of Victory Ridge shattered the unity that had made victory possible. Most of the survivors blamed each other for tactical failures and feuded over the spoils of war. Sadly, the unity that had defeated Ark crumbled into bitter rivalries. But not that long after the first wave, the Ark returned, and now the Ark is stronger than ever before. The current wave of Ark incursions is sometimes referred to as the second wave. The second wave includes a new generation of improved Arc machines, which are more powerful and durable than the machines in the first wave. The machines of the second wave have also significantly improved their tactics compared to the rudimentary machines of the first wave. The outcome of the second wave is still uncertain because the war has only begun, and the raiders of this current generation are expecting more highly intelligent Arc machines to land on Earth to continue the war until every piece of human life has been erased. In this section, I'm going to be looking at the lore through a philosophical lens and trying to understand what message arcraiders is probably trying to tell us. But without further ado, let's go dissect the lore of arcraiders piece by piece. First, I must point out the similarities between arcraiders and Neon Genesis Evangelion. Now, before you click off the video, hear me out. Neon Genesis Evangelion follows a teenage boy called Shinji Ikari, who is recruited by his father, Gendo Ikari, to the mysterious organization NERV. Shinji is tasked to pilot an Evangelion, a giant biomechanical mecha, to fight and destroy beings known as angels. The story mostly takes place in 2015, 15 years after a global cataclysm known as the Second Impact. Sound familiar? The similarities between arcraiders and Neon Genesis Evangelion are the following. Both have 3 major world-ending events. Arcraiders has the collapse and the first and second wave of Arc machinery. Neon Genesis has the first, second and third impact. Both have underground cities. Arcraiders has Speranza and Neon Genesis has Tokyo 3/NERV headquarters. Both have alien threats trying to end the world. Arcraiders has the Arc and Neon Genesis has the Angels. Now, does this mean anything? Most likely not, but I just wanted to point out these similarities because I thought that it was cool to see similarities between 2 different media types which both are absolutely peak cinema. But now, seriously, to the analyzing part. One of the messages I think arcraiders is trying to tell and show us is that if the world ends or is about to end, our biggest enemy is ourselves. This is especially true if the Arc are made by humans. I know this sounds a bit corny, but the message is true. Humans are not just enemies of each other, we are also friends. The only reason why people beat the first wave of Arc is because they teamed up and forgot their differences for the sake of humanity's future. The key to surviving the attacks of the Arc is to stick together as a society. Also, people would have never survived the collapse or the sunrise without each other. When the world gave up on humans, humans didn't give up on the world. People started building the world again, piece by piece, until the Arc arrived. Once the first wave of Arc was beaten, the unity between people shattered, and they started blaming each other for the deaths of many people. This shattered the trust between people, and now it's one of the biggest reasons why many raiders topside don't die in the hands of Arc, but in the hands of other raiders. The split community of raiders is one of the reasons why the second wave of Arc have not been defeated yet. Of course, the second wave of Arc are also technically superior compared to the first, but we will probably never beat Arc for good if we cannot unite as one big civilization once again. The Arc could symbolize the AI that our world is getting consumed by. In lots of ways, the Arc is like our world's AI, destroying our nature and mass consuming our world's natural resources. The biggest difference is that our AI isn't hostile to us, at least not yet. Also, the collapse could symbolize, for example, World War III. Maybe the answer to how we stop AI in the real world lies in the lore of arcraiders. Now I know that sounds a bit crazy, but hear me out. Maybe the only way to stop AI from consuming everything is to join as one species and fight back the creation that we have created. Now, before we go to the conclusion of this video, I just want to say that I appreciate everyone who has watched this video this far. Also, this conclusion is just my interpretation of the story, so don't take it as the absolute truth. In conclusion, the philosophy of arcraiders is that people can destroy everything and bring the whole world to chaos. But people are also the reason why the world can be a better place than before. People are capable of tremendous amount of hate, but also love. Only we can unite together as a society to defeat the Arc, or in our real world, to defeat AI, or maybe stop wars. Only we can save the Earth while there is still something to save. We just have to have the courage to fight back as united people. And this time, the Ark won't return. This time, it ends once and for all.